After I got a big raise, Mill made me pay for SIL's college. When I said no, she made fun of me at my party, and then my Phil told me she had paid a woman to seduce my husband. A few days ago, my husband and I had a party at our house to celebrate my job raise. This is a pretty big deal because I've been working for it for 3 years and finally got it. I'm not going to talk about the specifics of my job, but you should know that this promotion comes with a pretty big pay raise. We haven't told anyone about that, but that was pretty much the first thing my mother-in-law asked me when she heard about it. About 2 weeks ago, I was officially promoted. A few days later, my husband and I had dinner with our families to share the good news. Even though everyone else had already praised me, my mother-in-law asked me how much I would get paid now. My father-in-law told her off for being so direct, but I still told her the truth when she asked me a question. I kind of bragged about it because I know for sure that my mother-in-law has never liked or taken pleasure in me. To let her know that I'm still doing well for myself, I didn't care if she liked me or not. I'll admit that I was bragging a little, but she just smiled and told me how proud she was. I thought this conversation was over, but a few days ago, on the day of my party, she pulled me aside to talk to me alone. She told me that she had thought about it after hearing how much I was going to be making now. Asked me to pay for my sister-in-law's college costs because they thought it was fair. She wasn't just talking about my sister-in-law's college costs, she was also talking about how much things cost in general. As you can see, I said no right away because my sister-in-law and I aren't very close, and even if we were, I know for sure that she's going to a very expensive college out of state. I believe her parents should pay for it, not me. After I said no, my mother-in-law told me that since I was making so much money, I owed it to my family to help them out and that I was being selfish by not telling her. I told her I didn't care if I seemed selfish, I wasn't even going to have this conversation. I then left to go back to the party. When we got back to the living room, she started yelling at me and saying she couldn't believe she had let her son marry someone as fake and self-centered as me. I didn't expect her to come after me or make a big deal out of it. Everybody in the room was shocked, even me, because she had been pretty good at hiding the fact that she hated me up until that point. Like most horror mother-in-laws, she would only say and do weird things and be annoying. But this was her first public reaction in the 4 years I've been married, and it kind of shocked everyone. She yelled at me and said a lot of things about me that I think she had been holding back for a long time because I didn't know what to say. Before we got married, my husband and I were together for 6 years. I think this has been building up inside her ever since we met. She only needed a reason to say everything. For starters, she said I was selfish because I was the reason her son spent less time with his family. She said this because she barely saw her son since he and I got married and moved to the suburbs. I don't understand why she blamed me for it. My husband and I both wanted it. Not just me. In fact, my husband had told her more than once that he wanted to move to the suburbs after we got married because that was always the plan. What's wrong with her? She needs to find something to blame me for, not him. Then she said I was fake because I always pretended I got along with my in-laws in public, even though I really couldn't stand them, especially her. She also said I talked about her all the time behind her back. As it stands, I haven't done that either, and I have no desire to talk about her in general. Anyone who knows me or is close to me can confirm this. Up until then, neither my husband nor I had said anything. We told her she could say whatever she wanted, and then we would deal with everything at once. Then she said something about how selfish and mean I was. She seems to think that I always make my husband pay for things, even though I make more money than him. We were about to tell her that was also not true, just like everything else she had said up to that point. But before we could say anything, my father-in-law stepped in and saved the day. I'm so glad he did, because we learned a lot of new things. Our father-in-law told his wife to shut up before we could say anything. He said she was making everyone look bad. She was not only embarrassing herself, but she was also ruining my party for everyone else. Because she hadn't talked about it, no one knew why any of this was happening at that point. She yelled at my father-in-law after he talked to her. She told him that the only reason she had to do this first was because she had asked me to help pay for my sister-in-law's education, and I flat out refused to do it. She thought it was silly of me to say that, so she had to call me out on it. Then, my father-in-law said that since we were talking about my sister-in-law's college costs, it was time to talk about why she no longer had a college fund. Then my mother-in-law started to stumble and say things like this doesn't matter, but my father-in-law kept talking over her. Even though we could hear how angry he was, he first told us he was sorry for everything, and that it was not our job to pay for my sister-in-law's college. If I said no, I hadn't done anything wrong because it was clear that it would be expensive and not my job to take care of that. He did say that he had saved money for both of his children's college, but he had to give away a big chunk of that money as part of a case settlement a few years ago. All of that was because of my wife's mother, which is strange because no one in the room knew anything about it. At that point, My mother-in-law started crying really loudly to take everyone's attention away from what my father-in-law was saying. But my father-in-law didn't care, he kept talking. And that's how we found out that my mother-in-law had tried to ruin my marriage about 3 years ago by putting her own son with another woman. This really did happen, even though it sounds crazy. I still can't believe she tried to do it. I remember all of this very well because a few years ago, my husband was flirting with a woman almost all the time, whether it was in person or over text. She wouldn't stop, even after he told her he was married and wasn't interested in her, and she wouldn't listen. At first we would make fun of her attempts to flirt with him and date him, because he thought it was funny. But then he began to believe that she might be crazy. Although it was awkward, he had to talk to her because my husband used to work for his father's business. Because she was a junior in his area and made him feel uncomfortable, he was even forced to talk to his father about this employee's behavior. Even though his dad told him he would take care of it, she quit without warning, and that was the end of it. So we forgot about it because she didn't try to get in touch with him again. We just recently learned that my mother-in-law planned the whole thing, which is very upsetting. After some time, that woman apparently chose to sue my mother-in-law. To stop the lawsuit, my father-in-law had to settle with the woman, which meant they lost the college fund for my sister-in-law. I don't want to know what happened with that other woman if I have to. I'll post it later. For now, I just want to talk about my mother-in-law. Yes, when that big secret came out, everyone was shocked. My mother-in-law stood still for a second or two, and then ran out the door. My husband's dad didn't even try to talk to her, he just stood with us, and said he was sorry for everything. We thought he should have told us sooner, but he didn't know how to do it without making everyone sad. He made my mother-in-law promise that she would never do anything like that again, and he even put her in therapy because it was clear she had some major problems. My husband and I didn't know what to say at that point, so we just told him we needed some time to think about it. He then apologized again and left. What we had learned was so upsetting that we couldn't go on with it any longer, so people started leaving. My parents were the only ones who stayed. In any case, my sister-in-law wasn't going to the party, so she wasn't hurt. My dad, husband, and I all sat down together after the party and talked about what we had learned. After some thought, we decided that whatever my mother-in-law had done, whether it was in the past or not, it was gross, and we did not want to be around her anymore. My husband agreed on his own. It was easy for him to agree, and he told her that he was so disgusted that he couldn't talk to his mother the same way again. Not only that, but my father-in-law had been very good to us. But he had also helped my mother-in-law hide everything. Being alone and having time to think about everything was important because we learned a lot in one night. That's why we chose to cut ties with his family for now. After a few days, my father-in-law came to my house this morning and told us that he needed to talk to my mother-in-law. Obviously, my husband and I told her that wasn't going to happen, but he said she was ready to say sorry to me. The day of the party was the worst day of her life. Following their return home, he told us that they got into a very heated argument. It got so bad that he was considering leaving her, but she eventually changed her mind and told me she was sorry. Also, no one else in the family wanted anything to do with her anymore. The party also had some people from my husband's family there, and I think they told everyone else about it. A lot of people online had blocked my mother-in-law, and some of her close cousins told her they didn't want to be friends with her for a while because of what they had just learned about her. That didn't move me at all though, because whatever I had learned had had a big effect on me, and I didn't want to hear her say sorry. At least not right now. She could save it for another time, when I was ready to forgive her. Because my husband felt the same way, he told his dad that we didn't want to talk to them right now. They had no choice but to accept it. My father-in-law wouldn't leave though. He said that he had promised his wife that he would get us to talk to her, and he knew that. She had kept her word. Even though it was a huge mess, we had to give her a chance now that she was ready to say sorry. However, I said no, and he then told me that if I did, I would be just like my mother-in-law because she had never been willing to give others a chance, which was why she was always giving me trouble. I was aware that he was trying to trick me, but now I think about it, he might have a point. I don't know how to feel, so I'm here to get some honest feedback. What do you all think about this? AITA for if you think we should even give my mother-in-law a chance to say sorry to me, change that. A lot of people have asked me about the woman my mother-in-law paid to try to keep my husband from focusing on his marriage. In my first post, I didn't go into too much detail because I was in a hurry. But now that I have time, I can tell you that my mother-in-law pretty much forced this employee who used to work for my husband to do it. I didn't add this update until now because I wasn't sure of all the facts. But then my husband talked to their family lawyer, who was obviously involved in everything, and that's how he found out the whole story. So it turns out that my mother-in-law met this woman at a work party that her husband gave, and she saw her looking at my husband a lot. No one else had seen her do that because no one was looking at her, but my mother-in-law surrounded her and asked her what she was doing. It didn't matter that she kept denying it. My husband's mother-in-law knew that probably liked my husband. That's also not a crime. Everyone has the right to feel the way they want. But my mother-in-law used it against her. Later, she got in touch with her and got her contact information. She then told her that she needed to flirt with my husband and that she would be paid for it. The woman apparently didn't like it, so she turned it down. But then my mother-in-law started threatening to fire her if she didn't do what she said, and after a lot of pressure, the woman finally gave in. I don't know why she didn't tell the police about this. Maybe she was scared or something. For a while, she did what my mother-in-law told her to do and chased after my husband nonstop, even though he was married. Of course, at first we just laughed it off because we thought it was just a crush. But it quickly became crazy and fixated on one person. I think she realized she was becoming mean because of my mother-in-law as well, which is why she quit and blocked my mother-in-law. Several weeks after that, my father-in-law found out about what my mother-in-law had been doing when she got a complaint. Because they didn't want to go to court, they tried to settle this out of court. In order to hide everything, my father-in-law had to pay that worker a lot of money to keep quiet and get her to sign an NDA. Even though we never learned about it, it was pretty scary. We also don't want to talk to my father-in-law about it right now because he knew about it the whole time but never told us. Hello everyone, thanks for all the comments. You guys, our marriage is over and we no longer owe anything to his mother. We can say no to listening to her if we choose to. That's what we're going to do. Okay, I know she wants to say sorry, and maybe I should give her a chance. But now that I know everything and remember the temper fit she threw at my party, I don't even want to see her. My father-in-law doesn't really have a point because she never wanted to give me a chance because she hated me, and I don't want to give her a chance because she has made me hate her several times now. Just like that. And if he doesn't get it, we now know which side he's really on. A lot of my husband's family has called out to us since the party a week ago to say that they understand how hard it must be to learn something like this about someone close to you. But they are by your side. And honestly, it means a lot to us because we know they used to be close with his mother. She was nice to everyone except me, so we know they were close with her. The fact that they want to do the right thing makes me doubt that it will ever be easy for them to do so. As an example, I think things will never be easy for my husband's family, because his dad is trying to make us feel guilty so that we'll listen to his mom's apology, and now his sister is having a temper fit over it. I already told you that we don't get along very well, which is one reason I didn't offer to help her with the college fund. Also, she would have to come to me herself if she wanted my help. It was clear that I wasn't going to dance to my mother-in-law's music. Anyway, my sister-in-law called my husband after my father-in-law came to visit and yelled at him for being rude to his parents. She told him he needed to be strong and stand up to me because I couldn't insult my in-laws like that and get away with it. In addition, she thinks that my mother-in-law wasn't being unfair when she asked me to pay for her college because we are now family. My job as a family member is to watch out for everyone. If I can't do that, I might not belong in their family after all. So she doesn't think my mother-in-law did anything wrong, and she doesn't even think her mother should say sorry to me. My husband got mad at her, and he told her she had no reason to try to get involved in this. He also told her that since she had chosen to irritate him, he would now block her. He hung up on her and stopped her everywhere, but she wouldn't let it go. She began messaging him through the accounts of her friends, which is sad because it means she told all of her friends about the family trouble. Even though she didn't need to do that. Even more of her friends can't get in touch with us because we blocked them. Still, the fact that she keeps making new accounts, email addresses, and other things is pretty annoying. What's with her being so stubborn? Why does she have to prove to us that she is on her parents' side? She doesn't seem to know that she doesn't have any money saved for college right now. The truth will always be the truth, no matter how much she sucks up to them. If I were her, I would actually be sorry to you right now and try to make things right with you so that I have a chance of getting some money to pay for college. Because if I didn't, I would have to take out a student loan, and even then, I would have to make sure I could pay it back on my own. I think you all understand why her coming after us now is such a stupid idea. She isn't very smart, though, just like the rest of her family. Well, except for my husband, of course. Since he has been so helpful to me throughout this whole thing, I know that seeing his family act this way hurts him and is almost unbearable, but he hasn't shown it for a second. Just to make sure I don't feel bad about anything I do. I really wish I could help them because he doesn't deserve this. He deserves a better family and people in his life who aren't out to hurt him. We had put up with his mother's bad behavior up until now because he wanted to stay in touch with his dad and sister. She also had a bad attitude, but since she's only a girl, we didn't think it was against us. We always got along well with my husband's dad. This feels like a huge betrayal, but at least I have my family to help me deal with it, and he does too in the form of his extended family. I can't even think how I would feel if my parents did something like this to me. He's been so strong for me, and I'm so proud of him. I know I chose the right man to marry. It's been 3 weeks since my father-in-law came to see us and told us that my mother-in-law wanted to say sorry, but we weren't ready to listen at the time. We only wanted some time and space away from them, so we haven't talked to them since then. After his stay, my father-in-law was polite and didn't try to get in touch with us either. But he called us again a few days ago and said that he thought it was time for my mother-in-law to apologize now that a few weeks had passed. The truth is that my husband and I were not interested because we knew we would not forgive her. However, we still told her she could come over and say whatever she wanted because we just wanted to get this over with. We also knew that they would make a big deal out of it if we didn't agree this time. Anyway, when they got here, my mother-in-law started crying and saying she was sorry for everything she had done. She seemed to be saying that it had been really hard for her to accept that her son had married someone she didn't like. He must have thought she wasn't worth much to him because of it, which is why she was so against me from the start. After thinking about what she did, she decided it was very wrong and was ready to do anything to make up for it. But we told her that all we needed from her right now was some space. We knew she offered an apology, and while we were glad she had changed her mind, we didn't want anything to do with her at this time. But I think she was ready to do anything except that one thing, which was to give us time to heal and think about everything. She and her husband told us that they make mistakes as parents all the time and know that their actions hurt us deeply, but we should give them a chance to do better. They tried to defend themselves by saying things like no one is born perfect in a polite way. I told them that what they had done was not small and unimportant. If that had been the case, we would have been happy to forgive them. It was crazy how they took things to level 2 though, and it would take a long time for us to forgive them. Okay, so they should just accept it and move on. We might never be able to forgive them for that. My mother-in-law stopped crying at that point and told me she was ready to admit that what she had done was wrong. She said she was sorry, but it was too late. It happened in the past, and I couldn't let that hurt the bond between my family and me. Since both of them agreed, I told them to leave because it was clear we were not on the same page. I didn't want to waste any more time with him, so I told them to leave. Afterwards, my father-in-law looked at my husband and asked him to say something to me because he believed I was being rude to them, even though they were saying sorry. However, my husband didn't say anything. He just said that it was his house too, and that I was the one who had been hurt the most, so he wasn't going to step in. In order for them to leave, they would have to. After that, they got into a fight with my husband because they thought he was too calm about everything and letting the family fall apart. He didn't seem to care though, so they left after swearing at him. I don't feel bad about having them over because we got all of this bad stuff out of the way. Now I'm hoping they won't bother us again. We no longer want to deal with them, and today they even proved that their apology was not sincere at all. I didn't see that in them. If they were truly sorry for everything, they would have behaved that way. That being said, it doesn't matter anymore. Update 3 Hi. It's been 7 months since I talked to my in-laws last. Thankfully, they didn't try to get in touch with me again after I told them to leave. They do try to get in touch with my husband quite often, but he has made it clear that he doesn't want to talk to them as long as I'm not. He makes me sad, and I don't want him to feel alone, so I told him he can stay in touch with his folks if he wants to. But he's the best, and he's told me he won't talk to anyone who hurt me and won't forgive them unless I do. It's really cute, and I do like him for it. Anyway, I'm here because I'm now pregnant. We shared the news on social media yesterday, and I'm now in my 2nd trimester. For the same reason, we're having a party in a few weeks and his family is not invited. I just had to tell you that they kept trying to get in touch with him seemed a little odd to me. But since I got pregnant, they haven't sent him a single letter. I think that's pretty strange that they didn't even thank him. It looks like they don't want to have a relationship with their grandson, which is fine with both of us. We're not going to let them back into our lives no matter how badly they want to. Other than that, we're really excited to have a child. I'm sure it will be great. And I can't wait. Hey everyone, thanks for following along.